Alright, my heart has slowed down now. Well, if you're watching this video and the title caught your attention, well, thanks for tuning in, because this might be a subject matter that either you're going through, or you're about to go through, or have gone through. Then maybe something I say in this video might resonate with you, or you might find familiar ground in. But hey, if this is a sensitive subject matter for you and you want to watch something else, by all means go watch something else. I'm not stopping you. But if you're gonna stick around, hey, thanks for sticking around. But first, I have a dog to put down.
Okay.
He's fine. He's a god. Oh, I guess he turned into a wolf to try to talk to a dead wolf. A giant dead wolf. Saying goodbye to your pet, or how to say goodbye to your pet. Well, this is coming from personal experience because I had to say goodbye to two of them. A cat and a dog. But my first dog, I think I got him in grade 3, and his name was Blassie. The name behind that was, he was a Sheltie sheepdog, so he's a medium-sized dog, and he wasn't too heavy to carry, but he had white and black fur, and if you were to look at Blassie, you'd think, hey, that kind of looks like Lassie. But Lassie was always a girl, so my dad was being clever, and, well, since he's black and he's a boy, let's call him Blassie. So that's the story behind my first dog, Blassie. But by the time he got to around age 12, that's when he was becoming grumpy. He became a grumpy old man. But keynote here, I'm calling my dog a grumpy old man. And then from age 12 to 6, that was a bit of a tough time because he would bite people. He would be completely unfriendly except towards my mom, because Blassie was pretty much a mama's boy. My brother couldn't deal with him. My cousins couldn't deal with him. But except for me, I was able to earn his respect, and it all started when I was watching Cesar Millan, Dog Whisperer. And when Blassie was around 15, 16, and he was really, really old, he was losing his strength, he wasn't walking around properly, but I started noticing that the things I learned and picked up from Cesar Millan and some of the techniques and mentality, I started applying it to Blassie, and I started noticing that he would respond differently with me. I actually started going against the grain of that saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, I was able to actually teach an old dog new tricks, and the trick was respect, because I called him earlier a grumpy old man, and the mistake there is you can't treat a dog like a human being. That's where things go wrong. You have to treat a dog like a dog. You have to speak the language of a dog, and it starts when they were born. When a dog is born, they're born nose, eyes, ears, or nose, ears, eyes, I can't remember, but it's the nose. That's how you communicate with a dog. You start with the nose. If you have a dog giving you unwanted behavior like barking and biting things, you distract them with your nose, and then you realize, oh, if I stop barking, my master is going to give me a treat. And I started getting that with Blassie. He started to respect me and listen to me. And I was basically second in command, but he was still a mama's boy. But by the time he was like 16 years old, he was getting very difficult to raise, to the point where I was losing so much sleep that I actually fell asleep while driving. And if you live in Toronto and you know where this spot is, heading east on the 401 between Markham and Nielsen Road, I blacked out. I completely blacked out. And I just remember opening my eyes, and I was looking at a GO train station sign, a green GO train sign, and I was looking dead ass right in front of it, and I swerved. I was really lucky no one was to my left, but I swerved right back into the road, and I realized, whoa, that could have gone really, really bad. I was lucky I wasn't in an accident. I'm lucky to be alive. FBI, open up! Because I woke up just in time, because that would have been a really serious accident. I was stressed, I was getting late for work, I was lacking sleep, but there comes a point where, at least for me, I've gotten to the point in my life where I'm pretty much like a Kratos, or at least I know how to get in that mindset of being like Kratos in the beginning of this game, where Fenrir died. Spoiler alert, literally within the beginning of this game, Kratos needed to console Atreus into accepting that his dog Fenrir, the wolf Fenrir, was dying. And there's this really beautiful scene where his soul leaves and drifts away into I think it ended up being in the knife. After 2 experiences, I've gotten to this point where it's like, I know how to make that call.
Time draws near. You must prepare yourself.
He wants to live.
He is dying.
I know when it's time to say goodbye. And there was just one morning where since she was basically my mom's dog, it was her call basically, not really mine. I was still young, and technically my mom and my dad's dog. My dad passed away already, so it was all on my mom. But it was her decision to try to stay and support him as long as we can at home. And I think I see the reasoning behind this because my mom was an ICU nurse, intensive care unit nurse. Pretty much all of her patients, if you know anything about the intensive care unit, you know that these are pretty much patients on life support until they recover or until they pass away in the hospital on machines. So that's what my mom did. I don't think my mom had the heart to put him to sleep, like to use euthanasia, let your pet pass away peacefully in their sleep, pretty much die in their sleep. I would have made that decision sooner. Even though I was getting in a good rhythm with Blassie, he was starting to respect me, I was the second in command, he listened to me, I would have made that call much sooner to say, Mom, I think it's time. But my mom's decision was, I want to love and support Blassie until his dying breath. And there was this one morning where I hear my brother just calling out that, hey, Mom, Louie, something's wrong with Blassie. And I ran into the kitchen and I see him breathing slowly. And I noticed that his breath was getting slower, and I held his palm in my hand and I was looking at him in the eye, and I saw him give one last breath, and I saw his pupils dilate. And I knew he was gone. The thing about Blassie, like I said, he was a medium-sized dog. You know, it's a Sheltie sheepdog, so he's not small like a Chihuahua or Pomeranian, or big like a Husky or Doberman or Rottweiler or German Shepherd or Golden Retriever or a Irish Wolfhound. He was a medium-sized dog, so he was a comfortable size to carry. And the moment I carried Blassie out of his little bed in the kitchen, he felt different, because like you can tell when a dog is full of life in your arms and they're scattering around or moving in your arms, and you could feel life in your arms. If you're able to carry your dog, you could tell like this is a life form. But when I carried him, it's like the scene in the beginning of the game, the soul of Fenrir leave the body of the wolf. When I was carrying Blassie, it's like I was just carrying a body, a vessel, and it's like I couldn't feel his soul anymore. So after that,
We will find a way.
we will find a way. Whoa, 555. After we took Blassie to the vet, and I don't even know the time of death or whatever, but after we came home, I just went for a walk. For like a good hour, I just walked around. I was thinking about the time that I had with him, that I got him to earn my respect, that I was able to apply proper dog whispering techniques to my dog, and that I remember thinking, I'm going to be ready for the next pet.
See? That's a good idea.
And a couple of years ago, I was in a relationship. There was a German Shepherd, and we ended up picking up a stray cat named Shadow. But at the same time, like I've always liked animals. My dad got fish, hamsters, got lovebirds. We were deciding between a cat and a dog, and we ended up with Blassie. But I always wanted a cat. I always wanted to have a cat. But here I am in a new relationship with a German Shepherd of all big dogs. But it was interesting because, lo and behold, I already spoke, oh, you're a big playful dog. Everyone's going to be scared of you because they'll think you're a police dog, but you're just big and playful. I already figured him out, and then I was like the new dad, and it kind of got to a point where his name was Loki. The dog's name was not Atreus, Loki. But if I get a new dog, I want to name Atreus. I am putting that out in the universe. But there kind of came a point where I think Loki would listen to me more than the owner. I want to get my own dog, but I'm going to name him Atreus. There's a really interesting story of how we got Shadow, but I'm not going to get into the story of how Shadow appeared. But long story short, she was an abandoned cat. The original owners were moving into a new condo, and they couldn't keep cats, so they literally left Shadow in the neighborhood. And we found Shadow, and we ended up picking her up by chance. Basically, we saw Shadow, and then we made an agreement that if we were to come across this cat again, we'll pick him up, but not this time. But if by chance, by fate, by sheer luck, fate, destiny, wheel of fortune, that if we come across this specific cat, we will pick her up. a friend came over, visited for a couple of days, and we had to drive him to the airport. And around 5 o'clock in the morning, I was at a stop sign, and on the hood of my car, I see this tail going like this. And I'm like, is that a cat tail? I rolled down the window, I looked out the window, and I was like, Shadow! And the cat just turned and looked at me. I'm like, yo, that's Shadow. Go get her! We made an agreement! Go get her! Huh! Oh crap. The funny thing was, we knew she was an old cat. When we brought her to the doctor, they said that she was over 10 years old, and you can tell by the jaggedy edges on the pupil. If a cat's eyes are not smooth black pupils, and they're kind of jaggedy like in Rick and Morty, then that's an old cat, definitely over 10 years old. So I was guessing she was roughly around 12 and above. There's a very telling sign about cats because cats are very independent and very proud. You start noticing that a cat is actually acting more secretive, and they tend to be less social and kind of hide a lot. But there was a period of time before Christmas where I noticed that Shadow was always staying in her little hut. I'm trying to talk about my pets here. Oh! I'm trying to talk about saying goodbye to your pets. Get out of my face! Good job, boy. But before Christmas time, I noticed she was acting a little strange. She wasn't eating a lot, and she was always hiding in her little corner. But there was one morning in the wintertime where she kind of just came out of nowhere, walked up to me while I was sitting in my chair. And the thing was, I had work that day. My shift at this current job was between 12 and 8 o'clock. It was strange. I don't even know why I was awake. But around, I guess, like 9:30 in the morning, Shadow shows up out of nowhere, meows, and then kind of collapses next to my foot. And the thing about Shadow, she was an old cat, and her voice wasn't that loud. So instead of meow, her voice was more like meow. But very rarely will I hear Shadow go meow. But that morning she went meow, and then collapsed next to my feet. I'm like, something's wrong. So I picked her up, and she felt weird, or maybe bloated, or something was off about her. So we ended up going to the vet, and the doctor said, first thing was I had to drop like over $100 for the doctors to diagnose her, to see what's wrong with her. And boy, they found a lot of things wrong with her. She had low blood cells, low on white blood cells, low on red blood cells. Her iron was bad, her calcium was low. There was just a lot of things wrong with her. I knew this was coming. We've only had her for 2 years, so whatever short amount of time I had with her, I was gonna take it. That's the risk you have to accept when you own a pet, the day you say goodbye.
I wish it didn't have to end that way.
Sometimes there is no other way.
Sometimes there is no other way. How do you know which way is the right way and which is the wrong way? That's what I mean. Sometimes you just gotta make that call. And that's why I agree with Kratos a lot during his conversations with Atreus. So the doctor had a lot of issues there. So what was interesting that I noticed was usually if there's hope for the animal, like they could actually save the animal, they would say, we can do this, this, and this, we could do this procedure, we could do this surgery, and it's gonna cost this amount of money. And then the second option, obviously, is to put the dog to sleep, or to put them use euthanasia. What I noticed was the doctor came in to talk about Shadow. The first thing he talked about was letting Shadow fall asleep peacefully. And then he offered possible surgery. But I knew right then and there that was it. That I knew that this was Shadow's time to go. And I just knew it. Like, we had 2 solid years with her. She was a wonderful cat. Even though she was an old cat, she was kind of like a Lola, like a grandma. A very nice, calm, welcoming, quiet, but very kind of grandma vibe to her. I had that feeling, that instinct, that intuition that this was her time. But my girlfriend at the time, she disagreed. If you remember in the beginning of this game, Atreus was having a hard time accepting the fact that he has to let Fenrir go.
He's still eating. He wants to live.
He is dying.
And that was basically my girlfriend at the time. She was like the Atreus, and I was Kratos, where I just knew that the animal is dying. Petting her, making her comfortable, and she was purring. Shadow was a cat that just purred. She just purred, and you knew she was just happy. Like, she was very comfortable and happy because she just purred. She didn't meow very loudly, but she purred, and you knew she was happy with you. She was always purring, especially when I was around. When I was with her, she was always just purring. But even though she was lying on the vet, and obviously something is wrong, she was purring. But my girlfriend at the time, she saw it as, no, she's trying to live. Look, she's looking at you. But I knew. I genuinely knew. Well, when we were at the vet and when I was petting and comforting Shadow, I knew my time with Shadow was ending. But the thing was, I felt like Shadow was my cat. Loki was her dog, but Shadow felt like my cat. And I knew that was the right call. And I still had work. If I put Shadow to sleep that morning, I was not going to work. But she convinced me otherwise, that let's talk to my mom. Let's see if my mom wants to look into this. Maybe pitch in some money to possibly do surgery, or pitch in money to put Shadow to sleep. But I didn't know what the cost was. I didn't care what the cost was, but I was really willing to end her suffering, let her go to sleep peacefully, because I knew she was not the same. Again, like I said, she wasn't eating properly, she wasn't moving around, she was hiding in her spot all day, she was antisocial. So I just knew. But she convinced me to bring her home and talk to the mom and see what we want to do. So we went home, and I still went to work. And my shift was 12 to 8, and then I finished work.
Jump!
Doggo! Fen?
You're okay. It's over now. Fen?
Get another. I want to get my own dog, but I'm gonna name him Atreus. I get to discipline my dog and say, "Boy, Atreus."
Hey, Keith. Like you kept your promise to Mom?
We're already in Helheim. How cold can his nose be now? But when I got home after my 8 o'clock shift, I went through the kitchen and opened the door. And as I opened the door, my girlfriend at the time was there with the German Shepherd and the smaller cat, the younger cat Mitz, and there was Shadow. And when I opened the door and Shadow looked at me and made eye contact, Shadow gave the loudest meow I have ever heard her give. Because usually she's like, meow, but she went full on meow. And after that meow, Shadow was gone. And whenever I tell that story of me coming home after, first going to the vet, knowing that this was her time, we brought her home, and I worked an 8-hour shift, and when I got home and the moment she looked at me and passed away, everybody says the same thing. She waited for you to come home to say goodbye to you specifically, because like with Blassie, I was the last person he was looking at when he died. It was like Shadow wanted me to be the last person she saw before she died. And it's interesting too, because sometimes saying goodbye to your pet is a very difficult thing. Sometimes it'll deter you from getting another pet again. But for other people like myself, it makes me look forward to the next one. It makes me look forward to trying again. And sometimes dealing with death can make you bitter, but I've come to learn that actually it can make you kinder moving forward onto the next pet. So going back to the title of this video, how to say goodbye to your pet, that's actually a very hard question to answer, because one, you just have to know, and two, a very difficult decision to make, because I know there was one situation where a friend, her dog was sick, and she dropped like a couple of $1,000s to operate on the dog to make him feel better, but it only lasted for a couple of weeks, and I had to have a tough conversation with her about making the decision. It's your decision, but just the thing is, when you have to say goodbye to your pet, the main important thing that has to be spoken between the two of you, between your pet and yourself, is, does your pet know that you love them? Does your pet know that when they pass on to the next life, that they're loved? And you have to know that in your heart, in your soul, that you love that pet, and your pet feels that. That is the only kind of comfort and solace that you can have when you have to say goodbye to your pet. And same thing with Shadow. The thing about Shadow was, she was my cat. There are certain relationships you have with pets where you just know, like, that cat or that pet, that dog, that bird is my pet, and I'm her owner. Like with Shadow, she was my cat and I was her human. And like I knew that. And me coming home for her dying with me being the last thing she sees, like really just confirmed that. And maybe I could say the same thing about Blassie, even though he was a mama's boy. But in the aftermath, the time after you say goodbye to your pet, how do you cope with it? How do you deal with the pain of losing a loved one, your pet? What I come to learn was, when you have a pet, you have to understand that they are going to die before you. Their lifespan is a lot shorter than a human being's. You have to understand what you're dealing with. You do have to know that you will have to say goodbye to your pet sooner than later. But what I've come to understand is that even though you had one bad day to say goodbye to your pet, how many times did you get to say hello to your pet? How many times did you wake up and they were sitting at the foot of your bed? Or if you're a cat, how many times did you wake up with your cat purring on your chest? Or when they come out of nowhere, when you shake the bag of food and like, oh, there you are, you crazy cat, it's dinner time. Or how many times you get home and your dog is so excited to see you, they're barking, they're wagging your tail. How many days, how many weeks, how many months, how many years did you get to say hello to your pet? Like, how many days did you get to say hello to your pet compared to the one bad day where you had to say goodbye? And that is how I've come to terms or comfort myself, or even tell people how to deal with saying goodbye to your pet, or how do you deal with the aftermath in the pain and the grief and the anger of having your pet die, is how many times you got to say hello. And it completely outweighs that one bad day where you have to say goodbye. Because when you do that, you look forward to saying hello to the next pet that you want, the next bird, the next hamster, the next goldfish, the next dog, the next cat, whatever it is. Even though you have to say goodbye, that's only one day you have to say goodbye forever, or until the next time. But you have to carry with you all the times you had to say hello to your pet. And that is the solace and the hope you take with you going forward with your life. At least that's what's worked for me. Say hello. I don't know why I say goodbye. I say hello.
I need to know you'll be okay without me.
I have to be okay. You're gonna be okay. If you're dealing with loss of a pet, you're gonna be okay. Just remember how many times you got to say hello, and you carry that with you.
Don't be sorry, Father. Be better.
You will be better. It will get better. I'm naming my next dog Atreus. But
Nothing is written that can't be unwritten. Remember?
and frankly, I don't know if you believe this or not, but I do believe that I will see Blassie and Shadow again. Or heck, maybe Blassie and Shadow had the same soul. Yeah. You won't just be okay. You'll be better than you were before. I guess I'm speaking from experience. Once you get through the hardships of saying goodbye, you just look forward to saying hello again to the next pet. But that's all I really wanted to say and get off my chest here. But I hope this was useful. I hope you found it helpful. If you're still watching, just know that you're not alone. If if you're an animal lover and you're dealing with this, or you have gone through this, or you're in the middle of it right now, it's a tough experience, but I look forward to saying hello again. And if you got anything useful out of this, if you felt like you were being coached at some portion of your life, especially if you're an animal lover, and if you're looking for any other kind of life coaching, I recommend looking up The Fitty on Instagram and on YouTube. Her name is Linda. She's in Toronto. She wrote a wonderful book because mine here was specifically dealing with animals, but if you're looking for a more broad, more deeper, more spiritual aspect of coaching through your life, go check out The Fitty on YouTube and Instagram, and you'll be surprisingly very enlightened. But until the next time, peace out.